This is CBN NewsWatch.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm George Thomas. Just millions of the $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill are going to help with the pandemic. The rest is pure pork, including $500 million for museums and native language preservation, $1.5 billion for Amtrak, $300 million for humanities and the arts, and much, much more. So who will wind up paying for all this pork? Dale Hurd has a story.
The House is scheduled to vote Tuesday on the Senate version of Joe Biden's $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill. While the Senate removes some pricey items, critics say the bill is still full of pork, most of which has nothing to do with COVID.
I promised the American people that help was on the way. We've taken one more giant step forward in delivering on that promise.
The Senate version removes the $15 minimum wage, cuts off relief checks for incomes above $80,000 for individuals and $160,000 for households, and lowers the federal unemployment boost from $400 to $300. West Virginia Democrat Joe Manchin was instrumental in getting rid of the $15 minimum wage in the bill, something that's viewed as a job killer.
If everyone agrees it should be raised, but we need to the base of our minimum wage should be above the poverty guideline.
The final vote passed along party lines, with Republicans united against a relief plan loaded with pork barrel spending.
The Senate has never spent $2 trillion in a more haphazard way or through a less rigorous process.
That spending includes $500 million for museums and Native American language preservation, $1.5 billion for Amtrak, and $50 million for environmental justice grants.
Where is this money coming from now that we've got a $28 trillion tab in debt?
Well, it's coming from your children and your grandchildren. It's all borrowed money. There's $200 million for library services. There's over $300 million for the National Endowment of the Humanities and Arts. There's $20 million for native language studies. These all may be good ideas, but they got nothing to do with COVID.
Mark Hamrick, Washington bureau chief and senior economic analyst at Bankrate.com, says the massive government spending will help the economy in the coming months, but raises the threat of inflation.
The inflation worry is going to be with us for quite some time, but in the near term, that's going to be more rocket fuel for the recovery.
The bill is expected to pass this week, and checks should go out by the end of the month. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Thank you, Dale. Economist Dan Celia with financialissues.org joins us now with a closer look at the potential long-term fallout of this latest stimulus package. Dan, great to have you back on the broadcast. So here's the question. If only a small part of this COVID spending bill is for the pandemic or relief, economic relief, what do Democrats hope to achieve by passing such a massive spending bill?
Well, they're achieving a Nancy Pelosi wish list getting completed that is going to service special interest groups, lobbyists, and alike. This is nothing more than that. It was haphazardly put together. And 6 months ago, when it was decided by the Senate that $900 billion was more than enough for COVID relief, it should certainly not be over that. It's the most shameful bill I've ever seen, and I find it hard to believe that it passed, I guess, not really based on where we are in Washington, but it is a shameful bill, and it is just that, nothing more than a lot of pork, a Nancy Pelosi wish list, and it is got little to do. As a matter of fact, only 9% of it has anything to do with COVID relief. And it is shameful, not to mention the bailout of cities and states for their horrible management for the last 30 years. They, too, will be getting a bailout to help them start their mismanagement all over again.
The Wall Street Journal calling this the COVID welfare state, saying that this bill tantamounts to a high-speed train, to a cradle-to-grave welfare entitlement state. Do you agree?
I agree 100%. That's all this is, and that's what makes it so shameful. It's going to be very, very long-lasting, and I disagree with anybody that says that this is going to be short-term, this is going to be good for the economy. This is not going to be good for the economy in any way, shape, or size. What's going to be good for the markets on the short term? That's very different than the economy, and it's the economy that we should be concerned about.
Last minute here, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has floated the idea of passing, in fact, another bill. Can they do it again?
I don't see why not. I think this is going to come under a lot of pressure, though, because there are Democrats in that Congress that know that their job is on the line, and they've got to be very, very careful about what they approve from here on in. I think they're going to get replaced anyway, but I don't know that it can be done. But Nancy Pelosi has a very strong arm approach to those representatives that might not want to vote for it.
Yeah, so Dan, real quickly, with the economy on the verge of rebounding and the threats of inflation rising, how should Americans prepare for the road ahead?
Well, you know, it's hard to prepare for the inflation that is coming. One of the best things you can do is be careful. Make sure you deleverage, get out of as much debt as you possibly can. And all of their focus ought to be about that for the sake of their households, number one, because getting rid of that debt is what's going to preserve them through a very rough time in the economy.
Okay, Dan, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you. As always, thanks for coming on the broadcast. Dan Celia with financialissues.org. As always, thank you for your time. Today,
you're welcome, George. Thank you.
You're welcome. Today, the CDC announced long-awaited guidelines about what fully vaccinated people can and cannot do. A person is considered fully vaccinated 2 weeks after their last injection. Fully vaccinated people may visit with other fully vaccinated people in small groups inside with no mask and without social distancing. The same holds, by the way, true for fully vaccinated people visiting unvaccinated people who are at low risk. However, people who have been fully vaccinated should still wear a mask and keep their distance from unvaccinated high-risk people. They're also being advised to avoid travel and crowds. That's because people who have been vaccinated still run the risk of contracting mild COVID cases and passing it on to others.
That the current COVID-19 vaccines are highly effective at protecting vaccinated people against severe illness, hospitalization, or death from COVID-19. However, there is still a small risk that vaccinated people could become infected with milder or asymptomatic disease and potentially even transmit the virus to others who are not vaccinated.
Right now, less than 10% of the population is fully vaccinated, and most communities are still seeing high transmission of the virus. That is quickly changing, though. Saturday, nearly 3 million Americans were vaccinated, setting a new world record for the number of people given the shot in a single day. Meanwhile, there's a report of a new pill that can stop COVID in its tracks. The antiviral medication has been tested on fewer than 200 people, so it's a little too early to say for sure. The next trial phase will involve thousands. It's called Molnupiravir from the drug company Merck. It works just like Tamiflu for people with the flu. It's designed to stop the virus from replicating. If all goes well, it could be available late this summer. More calls for New York Governor Andrew Cuomo to resign, this time from the top Democrat in New York State Senate. This as two more women came forward over the weekend claiming inappropriate conduct. Senate Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins, one of the most powerful Democrats in the state, released a statement reading in part, "We need to govern without daily distraction. For the good of the state, Governor Cuomo must resign." In a hastily arranged press conference, Cuomo said that is not going to happen. Jury selection is underway in the trial of Derek Chauvin. He's the white Minneapolis police officer who pressed his knee into the neck of George Floyd last summer. You see the video here for about 9 minutes while holding him as a suspect. Floyd died, and his death set off protests over police brutality and racial injustice. Picking jury is expected to take at least 3 weeks. Chauvin and 3 other officers were fired. The others will face trial in August. The board of Ravi Zacharias' International Ministries is separating itself from its founder after an investigation found Zacharias engaged in ongoing spiritual and sexual abuse. The ministry has announced a forthcoming name change, and it says it's removing Zacharias' teaching from its website and social media. Heather South has the story.
The RZIM board says the changes are part of a months-long review into the ministry's structure and culture. Its first priority, the victims of famed apologist Ravi Zacharias, who died last May. RZIM is asking all of his victims to come forward and providing phone lines in English, French, and Spanish. Abuse advocate Rachel Denhollander will serve as their liaison.
It's finally coming to the surface. I mean, God is in the business of bringing darkness to light.
Attorney Boz Chavijan represents one victim. He told CBN News recently that he's closely following the ministry and the steps it will take to help victims and clean house.
Let's wait to see what happens.
RZIM says it will change the name of the ministry and that it is discontinuing the Zacharias Institute brand. It is beginning to take down Zacharias' content from its website and social media. Sarah Davis, the ministry's CEO and daughter of Zacharias, announced the changes. The RZIM board of directors so far remains anonymous.
You cannot hold people accountable and even begin to discuss accountability when there's no transparency.
Chavijan, who is also the grandson of Billy Graham, says he'd like to see all evangelical ministries and churches reevaluate their organizations and how they hold their leaders accountable. Heather Sells, CBN News.
Thank you, Heather. Pastor John MacArthur is less concerned about religious freedom when it comes to any laws the government makes. Take a listen.
A week ago, something that people have taken issue with, I said I couldn't fight for religious freedom because that would be fighting for Satan to be successful, because every single religion in the world except the truth of Christianity is a lie from hell. Doesn't matter what laws governments make or don't make, they have no effect on the kingdom of God.
MacArthur says Christians should not make any alliances with evil and should be the light shining over darkness.
As Christian believers, we are citizens of the heavenly kingdom, and our responsibility is to shine the light into the darkness. The light is in us because Christ is in us. To preach Christ is to provide light in the darkness.
Pastor MacArthur went on to say that the evil of darkness hates what God loves and loves everything that God hates. Christian actor and producer Cook Cameron is nearly halfway through his 100-day plan for praying for restoration within the country. In his American Campfire Revival, Cameron announced his initiative after the Biden administration rolled out its plan for its first 100 days. Cameron said that rather than waiting for someone else's 100-day plan to unfold, we should go on the offensive and roll out our own 100-day plan. His plan incorporates, by the way, sharing ideas based on biblical truths in videos he posts on social media. You can find out more about American Campfire Revival and hear Cameron's discussions on cbnnews.com. We have a new and free service to tell you about from CBN News. It's a daily email called Quick Start. It gives you the stories you need each morning from CBN News at 7 a.m. Eastern. Get important national, international, and faith-based news delivered right to your email inbox. You can subscribe to Quick Start at www.quickstart.news. Stay with us, folks. We'll be back right after this with more of CBN News Watch.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug-of-war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline, Friday night at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Welcome back, folks. You're watching the CBN News Channel. Big Brother is watching you. Literally, you are being caught on camera hundreds of times a week without even knowing it. Nearly 200 million security cameras are now trained on American citizens. So is there any way to protect yourself from this invasion of privacy? CBN National Security Correspondent Eric Phillips with more.
A recent report estimates about 1 billion security cameras rolling worldwide, 18% of them here in the United States. Like at this ATM, every time you do your banking, you're caught on camera. But you don't have to be using a service like that in order to be caught on camera. In fact, just walking down the street, you can be captured on closed-circuit TV. The U.S. is second only to China when it comes to keeping eyes on its citizens. Make no mistake, Big Brother is watching. According to safety.com, the average American is caught on camera 238 times each week.
Wow. It surprises me, and it feels a bit weird to think about that.
Concerning at all?
No, I just think it keeps people safer than it doesn't. And if you don't want to be doing something that shouldn't be recorded, don't do it.
Here's how those 238 camera views rack up. Cameras capture you at home or in your neighborhood 14 times a week, 160 times behind the wheel. While you're working, candid cameras catch you 40 times, maybe more if you're in retail, travel, or high security industries, and 24 times a week while shopping or running errands.
I mean, I don't like it, but I don't know if it surprises me. But yeah, not a great thing to know.
Jay Stanley is a senior policy analyst with the ACLU.
We're seeing a very rapid increase in the amount of public cameras that Americans are subject to. Right now, we have about 15 cameras for every 100 people in America, about 50 million cameras. And that's more per capita than any other country in the world, even China. I mean, the basic concern is that we're going to lose our privacy and we're going to become a country that's different from what we've always been. That from the moment you step out of your front door until you return home at night, every moment of your life in public will be recorded, potentially scrutinized, watched.
He says it's often artificial intelligence keeping track, not humans.
Computers that analyze your daily routines, that understand what you're doing, what you're carrying, what you're wearing, who you are, what your attributes are, and filing that away somewhere.
You don't expect privacy on the street corner. So if a camera captures what you're doing in the street corner, I don't think that's an intrusion on privacy.
UCLA law professor Eugene Volokh believes the positives outweigh the negatives.
Makes it easier, for example, to catch criminals. Maybe makes it easier to exonerate people who are falsely accused of crime. May also deter crime. While cameras have their problems, the question is compared to what? Compared to more aggressive police presence, the problems may be less.
Both experts agree the biggest concern is the potential for government tracking its citizens under the guise of crime prevention.
We're seeing some cities like Chicago putting police cameras all over the city and networking them together. They're also tying in private cameras. In some cases, the Ring cameras are being networked together by Amazon, which takes all the camera feeds and puts them in the cloud, potentially making them available to the authorities.
Part of the solution, experts say, is private citizens asking themselves several questions before installing cameras on personal property. Do you trust the manufacturer who may store images on their own servers? Do you trust the internet? Because any cameras tied to the web are susceptible to being hacked. And do you trust the government? That in many cases can use a warrant to access what your camera captures.
But if you're really worried about that, I think the solution is to make it harder to abuse the cameras and not to stop them altogether.
Nobody's saying that you can stop technology from rolling forward, but you can put some constraints on it, shape how it's deployed so that it comports with our values.
Stanley says that's where lawmakers should step in. He says they need to implement laws controlling access to these cameras, allowing us to benefit from this tech without becoming a surveillance society. In Washington, Eric Phillips, CBN News.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
And ministering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to CBNNewsChannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News. Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Welcome back to the broadcast. Pope Francis returned to Rome after a whirlwind visit to Iraq. As my colleague Chris Mitchell reports, the Pope's visit stirred the hopes of Christians who have for years suffered at the hands of Islamic groups like the Islamic State of ISIS.
Pope Francis traveled throughout Iraq from Baghdad in the south to Erbil, Mosul, and Karakosh in the north. To Christians who face the worst persecution at the hands of ISIS, he brought a message of hope.
Certainly there will be moments when faith can waver, when it seems that God does not see or act. This was true for you in the darkest of days of the war, and it is true too in these days of global health crisis and great insecurity. At times like this, remember that Jesus is by your side. Do not stop dreaming. Do not give up. Do not lose hope.
The Pope came despite the dangers.
We are not scared because Pope Francis was not afraid, and he did not want to let down the Iraqi people.
Many Iraqi Christians lost homes or fled when ISIS swept throughout the land, and since the Iraq War in 2003, the number of Christians has dropped dramatically in Iraq from over 1 million to now about 250,000. It's a hope of many that the Pope's visit will help preserve the church in this troubled land. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Thank you, Chris. Coming up, God's plan cannot be cancelled. See the Christian album topping multiple music charts when we come back.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5 Wednesday night at 9:30.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
Welcome back. Sean Foyt's album called Let Us Worship Azusa was #1 on iTunes and received thousands of 5-star reviews just after its release. It's also #1 across multiple platforms. It was originally blocked a week ago by digital distributor TuneCore, but despite the rocky start, it's taking off on iTunes.
When we praise, heaven joins our shout. Miracles are breaking out. We're dancing to the mighty sound of Jesus' name.
The album is named after Foyt's successful worship tour across the country. He celebrated with fans on Twitter, saying he had never seen so many positive reviews and people calling for the fame of Jesus' name to go viral. Folks, that's it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can find more of our awesome news programs on the CBN News Channel anytime or online with cbnnews.com. Also, tell us what you think about the stories you've seen by emailing newswatch@cbn.com, or you can reach out to us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. From all of us here from the headquarters of the Christian Broadcasting Network in Virginia Beach, Virginia, goodbye and God bless.